What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are going to take a look at an underused hero. As you can see from the tracker pop up at the start of the video, I've not played much with Muerte, and most people haven't, but I think that Muerte doesn't get the respect that they deserve because it can be a pretty good hero if you just get a little bit lucky. And we do start off pretty lucky here, sharding into Black Cat, the only last breath unit on level 2, and then finding a forbidden fruit on turn 2, which is going to allow us to pick up a Minotaur, which is a huge power spike here with Muerte because now we've got, it's basically pumping up 3 units already. The first half of Black Cat, the second half of Black Cat, and then the Muerte spawn from the Black Cat. And that is actually going to be enough to allow us to battle through this Fallen Angel and get the slay with Polywoggle. And our luck continues here as we transform that Polywoggle into a Spellweaver, going to pick up Kitty Cup Purse plus a Forbidden Fruit, which is pretty strong because the Kitty Cup Purse also getting the buff from the Minotaur. And then we roll into this shop, and typically not locking on 2.2. However, I think that this shop has a number of things going for it. Wizard's Familiar in combination with the Genie's Wish is going to make both of those into 3/3s next turn, which is going to be pretty strong. And speaking of strong, I think that we're going to be able to battle through some eggs on this turn, which is pretty incredible. We crack 2 eggs and also walk away with some Kitty Cup Purse Gold. So fantastic stuff. We will pick up the Genie's Wish and we will grab off of that and wish upon a star, which is just super fantastic. We are incredibly strong at this point of the game. Definitely a little bit of luck involved in this one, to be sure. But yeah, just doing some really fantastic stuff. The other reason that I locked onto these Wizard's Familiars is one of the best things that you can do with Muerte is just find all of the monster books. That is one of the best last breaths to capitalize on by doubling a last breath. So we're going to make some pretty good use of that. Unfortunately, I think that the Fates is going to be able to take us out here just thanks to their large Minotaur and then also Stag attacking first with those boots. But we are still really strong, and we're getting to skip past level 3 a little bit, which is actually pretty nice on Muerte because we want to get to level 4 as soon as possible, and we want to find those monster books. But while we are on level 3, I'll talk about another last breath that is pretty good to double, and that is the Mummy. And the Mummy's so good to double that I think I'm going to cut the Black Cat at this point and just make sure that the Mummy is our only last breath, so that way that is what we are doubling up on. And this Mummy should be able to easily get a 3-for-1 here. It will maybe not be as strong once my opponent takes out the Wicked Witch, but it actually still gets a 3-for-1. So pretty dominating combat nonetheless here. And now we're level 4 and we can just start rolling for monster books. We do see Sporko, that's strong too. I'm just going to wind up sharding another good unit, potentially trying to get Spellweaver. We've got a bunch of different evil 3-drops right now, so trying to grab a pair or something like that could be good. Now there are some other interesting things that we can do here with the shop, and I am going to wind up moving my board around a little bit after locking onto this Masquerade Ball. But basically Black Cat with the Water Wraith can actually do some interesting things with Muerte. Now, there's 2 ways to position this board. We could position it like this, or we could flip the Water Wraith and the Black Cat, and I'm just going to pause for a second to explain the differences between those. Basically, if we put the Water Wraith in front of, or let's talk about this way first. The reason that you would order the board this way is because when units summon, they summon first in their own position, and then they are going to go to the right, first and foremost, your own right, if you're the player. Oh, I guess they always go to the right, right? Because the board's mirrored. Okay. So they're going to go to the right, and what that means that if the Water Wraith dies first, then the Black Cat that gets resummoned will pop up in the Water Wraith's position, which is also in front of the Wicked Witch. The other way to position it would be to, and that's of course if the Water Wraith dies first. It's all if it can't spawn to the right, then it's just going to spawn in the open spot. Now, positioning it this way is fine to make use of the Wicked Witch, and I think that's actually how things are going to work out for us here. Yeah, because the Water Wraith is going to wind up dying first. So we'll see the Black Cat spawn and give us the support, but then the support winds up dying. So doesn't actually wind up working out for us. The other way to position things would be to maximize the pumps on the Water Wraith, but that's why I went for this one, how I did. Now, interesting combat options here. There's not really too much that we can get on tier 5 as Muerte, and I'm really not sure if the Masquerade Ball was really just a trap, because we do have so many mages that I maybe just want to be rolling for monster books at this point in the game, but we get to put together a pretty strong board here, picking up the Oni King along with a Friendly Spirit. Friendly Spirit is going to be really, really strong with +7/+7 if that's what we wind up doubling with Muerte. And then we do see some other last breaths here, Wombats in Disguise as well as a Cupid. And I'm going to lock basically just for the Cupid. I think that that might be strong enough to just carry us for a little bit more and will just give us some additional flexibility going into the late game. Friendly Spirit is going to trigger its last breath first, so that'll be a bunch of triggers there. Unfortunately, we wind up tying this combat because Jeebus had a Dark Contract there, so they were pretty strong as well. Then we wind up seeing our first monster book, and my board is getting a little bit crowded. I don't really even have the room right now to play everything that I want to play. I could cut the Mummy here, which is what I wind up going with, and then I get to pick up Hermes Magic Beans, and that will mean that my Friendly Spirit gets to attack first. Now, either of these last breaths triggering first could be fine for us, and I am not necessarily like locked in to the monster book strategy. I do think the monster book strategy is very strong for us both right now and in general, and obviously we know that is what I'm going to wind up going into eventually, but there is a chance that we take this Friendly Spirit to the late game and potentially do some other things with Good Boy and Muerte, which can also be quite powerful. And we're looking really strong here. We get to take out this Loki that's got a bunch of treasures too. Our 0 treasures, we more prioritized the XP on this one, but then we find another monster book, and I'll take another Hermes Magic Beans, of course that's good, and I'm just rolling trying to triple this monster book, and we do wind up getting there. I'll sell the Mummy and the Black Cat to triple that, and deck of many things, just continuing to cast more spells, I think seems pretty sweet. It definitely pushes us in a nice direction. I think could take the Moonsong Horn, could take the Gloves of Thieving as well, but just casting an additional spell each turn and going all in on spells for Muerte, I think is going to be the way to go. Because of that, I'm going to backline the Friendly Spirit now, because I really want to start focusing on scaling. Friendly Spirit is good for the current turn, but if that monster book is able to die, that's 4 spells cast plus 1 from the deck of many things, so that's just going to be a ton of spells. Now, awkwardly, playing this Oni King is actually going to make this monster book kind of strong, which means that it doesn't even wind up dying this combat. The Friendly Spirit, oh, it does die. It does die to the Juliet, okay, but it almost didn't die, and the Friendly Spirit almost died first. So it's kind of something interesting to think about. When I see another Oni King, I do wind up picking it up, and it could certainly be a mistake to do so. Also going to cast all the Genie's Wishes that I find, because those have been so great for me. But yeah, I don't know if I really want the Oni Kings here or not, but I think that it could be strong. And when I see another Spellweaver, I also want to try to get that in, because again, that's just going to be scaling. We are probably going to cast 5 spells again this turn, and it's nice just to get some free stats onto that. Probably not messing with this Wish Upon a Star. I'm really just locking for the Oni King, which again is a little bit awkward, especially now that we've dropped the Friendly Spirit, but it's really good stats at the very least. So planning on picking up that Oni King, I think, can be good for us. My opponent has a Soul Tack Ancient that does a ton of work for them this combat. We tried to kill that Water Wraith like 4 times, and the Soul Tack just said, I don't think so. But we will have a bunch of ranged units here in the back to clean things up, so we'll wind up walking away with a tie against Gwen. Not too bad, all things considered, and then we'll pick up an Oni King, and I'll go for Staff of the Old Toad. It's a little bit awkward because we have these Wizards Familiars and Spellweavers that aren't tripled. But basically, I'm thinking that if we can just take this this Staff of the Old Toad, we can potentially just find more monster books, potentially more Oni Kings. That could also push us in an interesting direction. But I'm thinking just grab 3 more monster books, add another upgraded monster book to the board, and then once we hit level 6, I'll try to find some Storm Kings, and then we've basically got our comp. And it's kind of silly because we are going to wind up not doing too much more in terms of purchasing units and things, but this can still be really powerful, and we're going to be able to do some nice stuff with that. Only 1 bonus spell cast this turn because my non-upgraded monster book winds up going down first, but we are still quite strong here. We've got all of these ranged units in the back to clean up my opponent's royal. So feeling really good at this point in the game. Basically, just want to find Storm Kings and maybe some more monster books to add to the board. But really Storm Kings. We can replace the Oni King and just go all in with that. We could consider Good Boy. There's Good Boy plus Merlin's Test here, but we don't have any of the other units to work with that, so it would be a little bit awkward. I will wind up picking up a monster book here, and then I'll do a free roll, and then I think we just, roll down and lock a monster book before ending the turn off. And one other thing that we could consider, because we are against the Ghost, is just playing all of the monster books right now for this combat just to get the most scaling as possible. I think that I don't go for that. But basically we could put in our benched monster book in replace of the Oni King and just try to get all of the scaling as we possibly can. We are still going to get decently lucky that our upgraded monster book is going to be the one that dies, so we'll cast an extra 2 spells this combat and grow our team a little bit. Now both of our monster books are upgraded, so now we don't have to worry about which one is going to die first. Unfortunately, these treasures are a little bit awkward. Fool's Gold when we're playing mages, and probably one of the ways that we continue to stay strong is just by casting combat spells every turn, so don't really want Fool's Gold, and can't really make use of either of those other 2 spells. Now, this is an interesting decision point in the game because we're going to see not 1, but 3 Pumpkin Kings, and I think, if I'm being honest, we should probably go full scam here. We've got the Cupid, we could pick up 2 more Pumpkin Kings, we could pick up another Cupid, and then we could just play a bunch of scam, and we're basically playing a scam comp as is. We are basically, the goal of our board right now is to just cast as many spells as possible. I try to sell the Cupid just for econ there at the last second, but it doesn't work out. But basically, we've got the monster book. If it doesn't get attacked by Medusa, then we've got another monster book. We've got the Muerte, and then we've got the deck of many things. So we should be casting about 7 spells per combat. But I also have some other big aspirations here that maybe we could scale this board and not really focus on the scam side of things. And scam comps are interesting because they are generally good if you're behind, if you need to pick up some big tempo units and you need to get lucky to win. But you can see up in the win percentage from the previous combat, we're really ahead of this lobby. Our units actually are large for this point in the game. They still need to get bigger before the end game, but they're actually big enough for right now, and they're just going to continue to scale. And then we also have enough scamming with the monster books. But we grabbed that XP earlier off the Genie's Wish and have overall just been pretty lucky this game. And for that reason, I think that we're not the scammer, we're the person that has to get scammed, though we are doing a little bit of scamming ourselves with all of these combat spells. And then deck of many things, and then plus I'm even casting combat spells wherever I can, so all of that is pretty great for us. And I think that we'll get away with a win here just based off ranged units, so that's pretty good. Staying strong, 78% chance to win. Going down a little bit probably just means we need to find some more Storm Kings. It's really the only thing that we can do to add to this board. I do really consider locking for this Knighthood. It's a little bit awkward because I would also kind of appreciate the tier 6 treasure from the Storm King, so I'm gonna just wind up rolling, and it's a little bit silly, but we do find another Storm King. So I'm going to sell Cupid and Oni King, and I just realized I'm calling all of these things King still. It's Oni Tyrant and Scion of the Storm now. But we're going to wind up picking up another Scion of the Storm before this turn is over, and we Lightning Bolt to take out one of their units thanks to the deck, and then our monster book gets to cast a bunch more spells here. Not really going to be anything scam worthy out of that one, but we will still just be strong thanks to our ranged units and some lucky attacks. Told you, you do have to get a little bit lucky on Muerte sometimes too, but things are going to work out nicely for us. We have seen a bunch of good boys, and there's potential that we should have gone into the good boy comp, but we had so much for mages already that I thought that this would be fun to look at. And one thing that I think is really interesting about this game, by the way, I'm going to put in my second Storm King as I play up against Jeebus here, just to put some respect on that name and make sure that I'm playing a strong board. But last turn I played the extra Wizard's Familiar in play because that needs to be in play to scale, whereas Scion of the Storm will still be able to scale while in your hand. So that's kind of the idea here, and hopefully, I know that they had a bunch of Medusas, and looks like they've picked up some more scams, but that's what I mean, like, they have to scam us because we're the captain now. So they will wind up getting a little bit as far as scams here, but we get to cast a bunch of spells too. That takes out the Rotten Applewood. It's not going to take out the backline Medusa, so that will deal with one of my Storm Kings, but we get to walk away from this combat with a win and a kill onto Jeebus. So feeling pretty strong, but basically what I wanted to talk about, that's kind of an interesting pickup too there, the Nyan Sea Terrors. I don't think we'll go for that just yet, but maybe after we find this Storm King or Scion of the Storm, we'll start looking for some Nyan Sea Terrors. Could go for a Croc, but I think that my cash is just best spent rolling, and we could potentially find 9th Book of Merlin. That is a little bit of what I'm thinking about right now, but we do wind up finding that 3rd Scion of the Storm, and that'll get us a tier 6 treasure, and this game's almost over. And one of the things that I think that is really cool about this comp is it's pretty simple. We did certainly get very lucky to start the game off, picking up all of those mages, finding the monster books, finding the XP, etc. But what we've done since then isn't actually that incredible. We are really just playing a bunch of copies of some unupgraded mages and then some monster books, and the rest really takes care of itself on Muerte. And I think that that is the coolest part of this game, is just how simple it is to put all of this stuff together. Phoenix Feather is not 9th Book of Merlin, but being able to double summon on my Scion of the Storm does seem like it will be pretty good. Interestingly, Scion of the Storm, or I should say Phoenix Feather, does not trigger off Muerte, so that's not something that we can double up. It's not a reduplicator, it is just, it has to say the word Last Breath. Maybe Phoenix Feather could be rewarded to become a Last Breath, though that would probably get confusing because it would, yeah, it would like make it seem like it summons multiple times or something. I'm gonna go for Fog against Loki because we know that they had at least one ranged unit, right? They had Robin Woods and stuff, and now we'll be able to cast the Fog, the Deck of Many Things, and then 6 spells off of all of these monster books. So hopefully that is enough to scam them. We take out both of their ranged units in the back line, and then our Muerte is going to, well, we don't quite take out the Robin Wood. We have to find some way to deal 1 to everything, which hopefully we can find in this monster book, and we do with that Fireball. So now we just have to battle through this Echo Wood, and unfortunately we don't get to. So we do wind up taking a little bit of damage there against Loki, and we've got a finals to play. So one thing that I'm thinking is interesting here is picking up 9 Sea Terror will let us toss the Staff of the Old Toad, which is one of the few ways that we can actually get some more power back onto this board into the final stages of the game. And really at this point, just looking for another Storm King now that we picked up Hand of Midas, or another copy of Wizard's Familiar to triple that. And then interestingly, the Wizard's Familiar won't break the Hand of Midas, but the idea is that once we add a Wizard's Familiar to the board, then maybe we can add another monster book or another Scion of the Storm, something like that. Kind of interesting that we had 54% chance to win last combat, but we wound up losing it. And that is going to be a little bit tougher to win this combat because we're not fogging. So my opponent actually went up in power level comparatively, but we are going to get pretty lucky on some of these spells here. We Poison Apple my opponent's Echo Wood, which means that it has 1 health, and now Loki only has 1 health. The Polywoggle, or Mix-a-Wizzle rather, was struggling with the name of that one, on the 9 Sea Terror is really good, gives us an upgraded tier 6 unit. However, this Ashwood is not going to be stronger than these Wizard's Familiars, so I won't put it in for now. Burning Tree, if we could have upgraded one earlier, would have been kind of funny with the Ashwood Elm, but unfortunately we don't get anything here. Now, I'm still sitting at 27 health. You can see we were only 27% to win this previous combat. So I'm thinking we might wind up losing this one. I'm going to lock onto the Wizard's Familiar, and then I'll just be rolling for Storm King, probably skipping the treasure. Scion trading into Echo Wood is pretty reasonable. And then we Pigomorph their Rotten Apple Tree, and that is going to actually really help us just in terms of allowing Scion to not get scammed at this point. And my opponent's pig is not going to be that strong, and we're actually going to win there with a ranged battle. So really close game. We can see I had 45% to win on that one. The percentage is definitely fluctuating a lot, but a pretty even fight to finish things off. But we were just able to do that pretty, I don't know, like we just played a pretty basic Muerte game and were able to scam and win against a trees comp in the end game. So I think that that is pretty promising things for Muerte and a pretty fun game overall. That's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.